the invisible epidemic that kills roughly 155 Americans a day. This was a name given to traumatic brain injuries, otherwise known as TBIs. When I was growing up, every time I would go to the skate park, go snowboarding, or go dirt bike riding, my mom would say the same thing. She would tell me to be careful and to make sure I wear a helmet. Most of the time, I listened. She did, however, have good reasoning for constantly stressing the importance of wearing a helmet. And here's why. The Brain Trauma Foundation, Retrieve 2020, states that TBIs are the leading cause of death in Americans aged 1 through 44, and that around 2.5 million U.S. citizens sustain a traumatic brain injury every year. I will firstly be going over the most common forms of TBIs, and secondly, explain the ways that these injuries may be reduced or prevented. How do these injuries happen? Let me tell you about the 5 most common types of TBIs. Firstly, what are the 5 most common types of traumatic brain injuries? The following 5 TBIs were retrieved February 20th, 2020 from a list on the Brain Injury Alliance Utah website. The first and most common type of TBI is a concussion, and is caused when the brain receives trauma from an impact or sudden momentum or movement change. As reported by an article written by Paulina Dadaj on the Fox News website on February 26, 2020, there has recently been a growing number of people suffering head-related injuries due to a new challenge on the social media platform known as TikTok. The challenge, or prank, is being called the Skullbreaker Challenge, and in the article, it includes information about an Arkansas teen who suffered a concussion after his friends decided to do the challenge on him. Returning to what was gathered from Brain Injury Alliance Utah, the second type of TBI is a contusion, which is a bruise on the brain that can be caused by a direct impact to the head. The third type of TBI is a coup contre coup, which occurs when the force impacting the head is not only great enough to cause a contusion on the impact side, but is also able to move the brain to slam to the other side, causing an additional contusion. The fourth type of TBI is known as diffuse axonal and can be caused by shaking or strong rotation of the head, resulting in the tearing of nerve tissues throughout the brain. The fifth and final TBI is penetration and is the result from the impact of a bullet, knife, or other sharp object that forces hair, skin, bones, and fragments from the object into the brain. Now that we know of the different types of TBIs and what causes them, we can look into the multiple ways we can reduce them. What can we do in order to lessen or prevent traumatic brain injuries? The following methods for TBI prevention were retrieved February 20th, 2020 on the Shepherd Center website. The first few methods for TBI prevention all involve vehicles, which are an integral part in these types of injuries. The first method for TBI prevention that directly relates to vehicles is to always make sure to wear your seatbelt when operating or riding in a vehicle. The second is to never drive under the influence of drugs or alcohol or get a ride from someone who is under the influence. The last method that pertains strictly to reducing TBIs that involve vehicles is to limit the amount of distractions to as little as possible while driving a vehicle by avoiding things like texting or using your cell phone. Another method to reduce the likelihood of a TBI is to make sure you always wear a helmet if the sport or activity you are currently partaking in justifies it, such as football, skateboarding, or hockey. In a recent article written by Paul Schlesinger on February 16, 2020, on YourCentralValley.com, it describes what happened to a 43-year-old man from Selma, California, who sustained a serious head injury after being tossed off of his ATV. Not only was the man not wearing a safety helmet when he crashed, but the spokesman on the scene believed alcohol may have also been a contributing factor to the accident. Going back to what was recovered from the Shepherd Center on TBI prevention, A further method you should use would be to try and prevent falls at home, which, as reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is the leading cause of death for people who are aged 65 or older. This can be done by doing things such as installing handrails in troublesome areas, for example, the stairs in bathrooms, or even by simply improving the lighting throughout the house. The final method to lessen the amount of these injuries is to prevent head injuries in children, which can be done in a number of ways. You can do this by using safety gates to prevent access to dangerous areas, corner cushions to baby-proof furniture that could cause injury, or by using non-slip bath mats in bathtubs. In conclusion, we have gone over what the 5 most common forms of TBIs are and what causes them, as well as a number of ways these injuries can be prevented. Although traumatic brain injuries are a leading cause of death in the country, we have learned that a good portion of these TBIs are avoidable if we follow a few simple steps. Now that you know these steps, ask yourself, have you or someone you know ever had some form of a head injury that could have been prevented?